Hand signs are one of the most iconic aspects of Naruto. Shinobis in the Naruto world must perform hand signs in order to do their jutsus. Each jutsu has a specific sequence of hand seals that must be achieved in order to produce the jutsu. Now we see later on in the series that very skilled and talented ninjas can shorten the length of the sequence of hand signs to make their jutsus happen. However, this is not really the norm and it only applies to very skilled ninjas. We also see shinobis that are capable of doing jutsus that once required hand signs, now they're just doing them without hand signs. For example, Kakashi and Sasuke with their Raikiri and Chidori. But I've made a video why hand signs kind of die down in the Naruto series. But this video is not about that. This video is about every single hand sign there is in the Naruto series. There are 12 base hand signs that are used for almost every single jutsu, and each of those 12 is based off a real life animal. And those hand signs are actually from real shinobi lore as well. They were used as signs of prayers by real ninjas in real life back in the day, which is really cool that Kishimoto brought that aspect into the Naruto story as well. Certain types of jutsus will use more hand signs than others and use specific hand signs as well. You can see a differentiation of hand signs between jutsus from different elemental transformations, which we're going to be talking about when we go through the hand signs. And we are also going to be talking about hand signs that are not within the main 12 here, that are exceptions to the rule and only used in very specific jutsus. But now let's begin with the 12 base ones, starting off with the ox hand sign or ushi. To perform this hand sign, you take your left hand and lay it horizontally. Take your right hand and weave your fingers between your left hand's fingers. Now take the middle and ring fingers and lay it on your right hand, and that's the ox hand sign. This particular hand sign is a staple of lightning style jutsus, and you can see it prominently in the Chidori. This one is so cool in my opinion. It looks great on page. Moving on to the boar hand sign or E. This one is pretty simple. Take both your hands and curl your fingers and thumb, but keep the first segment of them straight. Join your hands and point them downwards, and that's the boar hand sign. This is a more standard hand sign for several basic jutsus in the Naruto verse, including the summoning jutsu, and it's also present in the fireball jutsu. The dog hand sign or Inu is also pretty simple. All you have to do is take your left hand and curl it into a fist. Lay it horizontally, then take your right hand and lay it flat on top of your left hand, and that's it. Pretty simple and easy. This one is also a pretty standard lightning style jutsu. You can see it in the Chidori as well, and it's also present in several other types of jutsus like the summoning jutsu too. And yeah, just because a particular hand sign may be a staple of a certain jutsu or elemental transformation, it doesn't mean it cannot be present in other types of very different jutsu as well. But there are certain seals that are even acknowledged in universe to be very common for particular types of jutsus, which we're going to be talking about. Let's move on to the serpent hand sign or Mi, and this one is definitely the easiest of them, at least the base 12. All you have to do is clasp your hands together very easily. This seal is a staple of earth style techniques. Kakashi acknowledges that when he fights against Kakuzu, he sees Kakuzu using this hand sign to harden his skin using the stone skin, and then he uses his Raikiri to pierce through the skin using earth style's weakness, which is lightning style, and he could do that because he identified Kakuzu's jutsu being earth style because of the hand sign. We can also see Deidara using his clay explosives and weaving the serpent hand sign as well, which gives Sasuke the information, okay, this is probably earth style, so let me use my lightning style to defuse the bombs. But the serpent hand sign is also present in very different jutsus like the Rinne Tensei, for example, so there are many usages of this hand sign as well other than earth style. The ram hand sign or Hitsuji is the classic Naruto hand sign. It's the one we see in the arena for the preliminary fights of the Chunin exams. It's the hand sign ninjas kinda used to concentrate and even gather their chakra without even performing jutsus. It seems to be the base hand sign out of the 12 base hand signs. To perform it, take both your hands and make a peace sign, but the middle index fingers are joined. Slide your left hand between your right hand pinky, ring, and thumb. Curl the left hand's fingers around the right hand and do the same for the right hand as well. And as I said before, this jutsu is basically everywhere. Almost every type of nature transformation and basic Naruto jutsu will have this hand sign. It is the staple sign there is. And when you're playing hand signs as a kid, this is probably the first one you're gonna try, or maybe the Shadow Clone Jutsu hand sign, I don't know. Now let's move on to the hair hand sign or U. You take your right hand and make a finger gun, lay your left hand horizontally and take your left hand and curl all your fingers inwards except for the pinky, and that's the hair hand sign. This one is a staple of lightning and wind style jutsus. It's also present in the Chidori/Raikiri, and we can see Danzo weaving this hand sign a lot when using his wind style jutsus, and also Izanagi in the fight against Sasuke. It's also present in a couple of fire style jutsus as well, so it seems to be a multi-purpose hand sign as well, just like most of the 12 base. Moving on to the tiger hand sign, or Tora. This one is pretty easy and one of the most iconic hand signs. If I had to pick the most iconic, it would be this one. You just have to clasp your hands together, but keep your index and middle fingers pointed up. And this is the staple hand sign for fire style jutsus. Almost every time we see a fire style technique being used, it has this hand sign. The very first one we see, Fireball Jutsu, and the most classic one that Sasuke uses for the first time in the bell test, has this final hand sign to finish the jutsu. When Kakashi forms this hand sign just before he uses 1,000 Years of Death on Naruto, Sakura freaks out because she thinks Kakashi's about to use a fire style and blow Naruto away, just because this hand sign is associated with fire style jutsus. But it can also be seen in other abilities as well. But yeah, fire style is the staple for this particular hand sign, and I think it looks pretty cool. For the rat hand sign, or Ne, you take your right hand and form a peace sign, but with the middle and index fingers joined. Take your left hand and curl your fingers around the middle and index fingers. To be more detailed, your left hand's fingers should be curled around the middle finger, and the thumb curls around the index finger, but that's the rat hand sign. And this is the staple seal that Shikamaru uses every time for Shadow Possession Jutsu. You see Shikamaru using that all the time in part 1. It's pretty cool and pretty easy to do as well. Now the monkey hand sign, or Saru, you just have to take your right hand and lay it horizontally to yourself. Lay your left hand on top of it and curl the left hand's thumb around the right hand's pinky, and do the same for the right hand's thumb as well. And then you have the monkey hand sign. This one is also used in Chidori and a staple of lightning style jutsus, but also several other types of abilities as well. The horse hand sign, or Uma, is one of the coolest ones in my opinion as well, and for the uninitiated a little bit more difficult to perform. Take both your hands and make the same shape with your fingers as if you were pointing at something, but keep the first segment of your finger straight. Bend your thumbs so it's curled into the side of your hands, and separate your fingers a little bit. Then take your hands and stack your fingers together. Stack them on top of each other's first joints, and point your index fingers together to make a triangle. This hand seal is also a staple for fire style jutsus we see Sasuke using for his first fireball. It comes just before the tiger hand sign, and a very iconic shot is when Madara jumps down to the alliance and forms a single horse hand sign to perform Majestic Destroyer Flame, one of the most powerful fire style jutsus we've ever seen, performed by a single horse sign. And now we have the dragon hand sign, or Tatsu. You take your hands and insert your fingers together. Each finger should be in between another finger, then two pinkies should be joined together. The two thumbs should be overlapped with a left thumb on top. This one's also pretty common for fire style jutsus, but it's also present in the summoning jutsu and several other abilities as well. We see Sasuke using this one for his dragon flame jutsu against Orochimaru, and also Hiruzen when casting his dragon flame bomb. Now the bird hand sign is probably the most difficult one out of the 12 base hand signs to perform, but you take both hands and make the surfer dude sign. Now you connect your index fingers and pinkies. Take your thumbs and bend them so the second joints are put together. Now stack the middle and ring fingers on top of each other, and that's the bird hand sign. It's probably the most awkward to weave and sequence with other hand signs. It kind of breaks the flow if you're not used to this one. And the boar hand sign as well, but the boar hand sign has more to do with the fact that you have to twist your hands completely, so it kind of slows down your motion for a second or so. But the boar hand sign is not that difficult. The bird hand sign is actually pretty tough. And now that we've talked about the 12 base hand signs, let's move on to the exceptional hand signs used in particular jutsus. Starting off with a mind transfer hand sign, which you simply have to do the heart symbol with your hands, joining them together, kind of making a circle, combining your middle and index fingers up and thumbs below, and then you point towards the target that you want to transfer your mind at. Similarly to the mind transfer jutsu, we have the mind destruction jutsu, another Yamanaka technique, and this time you just want to open up your hands, forming a palm, and then you'll create a rectangle with your hands, pointing it towards the enemy that you want to destroy the mind of. We see Inoichi using this jutsu for the first first time during the Chunin exams invasion, and canonically, it's literally the only time we see it, because, yeah, it's probably too powerful to keep it in the series, I don't know. But it does have a specific hand sign to it that we don't see anywhere else, which is interesting. One of the most iconic hand signs has to be the Shadow Clone hand sign. It's probably the first one you've ever done when trying to do them as a kid. What you want to do is to form a peace sign with both hands by joining your middle and index fingers. You point your left hand up in vertical position, and then you touch the index finger of your left hand with the middle finger of your right hand, but your right hand has to be horizontal, and that's the Shadow Clone Jutsu. Very basic, but very classic. This hand sign is also used to perform the multi-wood clone jutsu. Madara uses this hand sign and produces the clones that are going to use Susanoo against the 5 Kage. So it's not just a Shadow Clone Jutsu. It seems to be, of course, a sign that's geared towards cloning abilities, but the regular clone jutsu does not actually use this sign. It's probably done for cloning abilities that produce physical copies that can actually damage the opponent and not just illusions like the regular clone jutsu is. Next, we have the clapping hand sign, which is the simplest one you can do. You just clap your hands together, and there are a couple of abilities that use this different hand sign, most notably Chibaku Tensei, which only requires the user to clap their hands together, forming that mini black hole that will begin to suck in the earth and form a small planetoid. We then have the hidden jutsu hand sign, and I really don't know a better name to give this one because it's kind of arbitrary when characters use it. It's the hand sign that Haku uses before he performs his mirror ability, the sign Orochimaru uses before he implants the curse mark on Sasuke, and the sign Kakashi uses before he uses Kamui for the first time against Deidara. Now, it looks pretty interesting and cool and kind of difficult, but it's actually pretty simple. What you want to do is just to form the tiger hand sign, which is one of the simplest ones, and then lace your middle fingers behind your index fingers, and that's it. It's pretty simple. A more obscure type of hand sign, but it's definitely used around the series. It's very much implied that the abilities this particular hand sign performs are very secretive. Hidden jutsu's powerful secret abilities that only a couple of shinobis will have, and mostly KK Genkai, as Kakashi's Mangekyo Sharingan is technically a KK Genkai that was bestowed upon him. We see Haku using his ice style, which is a KK Genkai, though Orochimaru's passing of the curse mark is something he developed out of Jugo's body and DNA and not something he inherited like a KK Genkai, but it's still a very secretive, dark ability in the verse. There's the Byakugan hand sign, which you just have to clasp your hands together and lift your right index finger, but this hand sign kind of falls out of usage in Naruto Shippuden or even midway through Naruto Part 1 because most of the characters, aka Neji and Hinata, just use the Byakugan without weaving hand signs, but back in the Forest of Death, Hinata was using this hand sign to activate the Byakugan, and it was something unique. Shikamaru also has a very specific hand sign that he uses in the fight against Hidan, the fight where Asuma dies. At first, he is performing the basic red hand sign, which he always uses to use the Shadow Possession Jutsu, as I mentioned before, but when he changes the shadow and using the sewing needles, then he's forming this weird hand sign that looks like the bird hand sign, but instead of having the pinkies and index fingers pointing up, he has the pinkies and ring fingers pointing up. And this happens in chapter 325, but it's very strange because in one page, he's weaving this weird hand sign that we've never seen before, kinda like a bird hand sign, but not really, to perform shadow sewing needles. But then 2 pages after that, when Hidan is restrained by the needles, then Shikamaru is displaying the regular bird hand sign. So was that a mistake by Kishimoto, or was Shikamaru weaving more hand signs? We just don't know, and we don't have the indication that he was in the manga, like his hands weren't moving, they were static. Regardless, we do see an exceptional hand sign from Shikamaru. Now, speaking of the Hidan fight, when Asuma uses Chiriku's jutsu, Raigo Senjutsu, that weird yellow statue of the Buddha that kinda looks like Netaro's jutsu from Hunter x Hunter, but much smaller. And by the way, this is not in the manga, it's a filler jutsu, but it's a cool jutsu, I'm mentioning it here. Asuma uses a very different hand sign, and it looks pretty much like a Buddhist prayer. One of his hands is open and pointing up in the middle of his chest, and the other hand is also open but pointing down. And we also have a very specific taijutsu hand hand sign for the Naruto hand sign. It's a very cool seal. It looks great in panel when guys just pointing that at the target of the Naruto. It's amazing. It looks great, but I have to be very honest with you guys. I have no idea how to perform that hand sign because it's way too complex for me. I mean, I tried before I make this video to create the hand sign by myself. I was looking at the manga panel. I was looking at the anime. I couldn't do it. I'm sorry, but I don't know how to do this one. It's by far the most difficult hand sign in the Naruto series. If you don't count one-handed hand signs, which are essentially the same of the 12 basic hand signs, however, you perform them with one hand, and the hand is gonna change what are you gonna do for each particular hand sign, so it's more difficult to perform them, and also it's difficult because you don't have the other hand aiding you and stuff. Still, only Minato and Haku ever use one-handed hand signs in Naruto, so it's not terribly relevant. And I've made a video why these hand signs are so rare as well. But subscribe to this channel if you haven't done so already, and definitely like this video if you enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments what's your favorite hand sign, or if you know how to do the Naruto hand sign, and watch this other video right here for more entertaining Naruto content. Thank you so much for watching, guys.